Yıllarca tüm stratejisini maddi getiri odaklı kuran global şirketlerde insana ve doğaya saygı duyulması için çalıştım. Ben İlkay Demirdağ. Artık tarım, enerji, iklim teknolojileri ve deep tech gibi alanlarda sermayenin sorumlu bir bilinçle onarıcı ve etki odaklı yatırımlara yönelmesi için emek veren bir yatırımcıyım. Hızla değişen dünyada etki odaklı yatırım stratejileri oluşturmanın, amaç ve kârı birlikte var ederek yatırım getirisi elde etmenin yollarını keşfetmeye ne dersiniz? Dotshub'da bize katılın, farklı bakış açılarıyla ilham alın ve değişimin öncüsü olun. Impact Unlocked'a hoş geldiniz. Welcome everyone to the first episode of Impact Unlocked podcast series, which will be focusing on responsible investments, conscious capitalism, and impact and regenerative focused investment strategies. We have two fascinating guests today who bring an incredible wealth of experience and wisdom of creating impact. So welcome Eda and Markus. They are the co-founders of Joint Idea. It's great to have you here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, today we're gonna start looking into the definition of impact, and then talk about creating impact, starting from ourselves to the societal change, and also talk about the misconceptions of impact as well. So without further ado, I would like to unlock our conversation. Let's kick off and start the foundation of our discussion with the definition of impact. So for you, what is impact and what it is not?
Who would you like to start with?
You go.
You go.
Well, impact is one of these words that is used so much without anybody really fully understanding what it is. So I think it's great that you bring some clarity to the table. So for me, one of the best definitions that I've heard of impact is that it's not an investment category. So this might be surprising to some, but it's actually a lens through which you look at what it is that you're doing. So maybe just building on that a little bit, it's not a kind of transactional thing. It's something that you move into relationship with. And I think that this is really, it's a living, dynamic field, I would call it.
Eda?
Every word has a meaning that's special to each one of us differently. We use words, but we have a perception of words. So like Markus said, impact is a perception in many people's minds in different ways. For me, impact is more than the investment part of the story. Is how you respond to life. Mm-hmm. If you choose to be responsive rather than reactive and to take a breather in whatever decision you're making, there is this wonderful perception that Markus has that, when making a decision, he likes to ask, what would baby Jesus do? So, not Jesus in our case, but it will be wonderful to ask, what would God do in this situation? Act through a more conscious perception in everything that we do, not only investments, then we can create impact and just pays itself forward in life, I think.
I love the definition of both of you, actually, because it all starts with the connection with ourselves when we start to create an impact. So I would like to really turn inwards and really understand, where do we start from ourselves to create more impact, to change the world?
I think from ourselves to change our reality, it starts. And to change our reality, we call that human algorithm. In Joint Idea, we have this concepts that we have developed. So human algorithm is, I think, where you start. When you start to shed your masks and you're more sincere and authentic towards life and in your relationships, then right people come along and right people bring right people. So when you have the right crowd and a very sincere collaboration environment that emerges from it, which we also say cultivating serendipity, situation is ready for it to blossom on its own.
Well, for me, it kind of goes back to this very old phrase that so many people throughout history have used, that everybody thinks of changing the world, but nobody thinks about changing themselves.
Yeah.
And when we start on this road, we come to a point where we realize, there's so many things wrong in the world. I have to fix it, and it's my duty to fix it. And then all of a sudden you start to realize that I can't really fix the world. That's not possible. The only thing we can really do is be a good example, a living example of what we wish to see in the world. And that really sounds like a cliche to many people to say that, but it's the ultimate truth. And, we must change from within so that the world around us starts to change. And we can't have impact if on the inside we're not feeling impactful, but then we choose to, let's say that we want to play in this impact space and we want to change the world and be impactful without actually having those qualities within ourselves. So it's one of these things that you can't fake it. You can't cheat it. There's an ultimate truth in it. I mean, to have an impact on the world, you must first be impactful yourself. And there's no other way around that.
There's no shortcut.
There's no shortcut.
You mentioned that in our event as well. It was great that, you said actually start from your own environment and start with a small impact and then, make the bigger steps, which was really powerful, I think.
It's so powerful because, we often don't think that we are the 5 people we spend most time with. So if the people within your closest circle are not thriving, if they're not feeling impactful, if they're not feeling this sense of aliveness within them, that they are also open to serving something bigger than themselves, then you're not capable of having an impactful life. Like Eda was mentioning, we need the people around us. You can call that our human algorithm, those people that we somehow resonate with, that we're doing our life with. And, this is one of the things we've been working on for so long now, trying to create a community of people that we want to do our life with. And it's a really powerful and difficult thing to do. Making a sincere community that is really focused on the right thing, that it's not just focused on an issue, but it's focused on the quality of life, the quality of living. This becomes a life mission that is not just a 1 or 2 year job. It becomes something that unfolds over the course of your entire life. But it has to start from within yourself.
Well, thank you for this, explanation of impact. Now let's explore a deeper philosophical element that can shape our understanding of impact. What is prajna parada, or crimes against wisdom, and why is it important in leading an impactful life?
Well, this idea of prajna parada, which is a really ancient word. It's from Sanskrit, which is now, as many people know, a kind of redundant, obsolete language. But in fact, with AI and others, it's starting to come back because it's a language that holds within just a few words such amazing, powerful truths that the words are kind of vibrational. So that it caught my attention quite a few years ago when I first heard about it. But beyond the mystery or the mystique, let's say, of Sanskrit, this idea of a crime against wisdom, this is a really powerful concept. When we commit a crime against wisdom, we're actually creating a conflict with truth. And ultimately, it's truth that will bring us our sense of aliveness. We are alive because of a fundamental truth. There are certain, let's say, rules of the universe that make life possible, that we still don't fully understand intellectually. We don't know how to make life yet. But it's a fact that we're here. So when we do things that go against life, go against this kind of life force, against the wisdom that is underpinning all life, we suffer from that. We actually destroy ourselves from that. Maybe we don't sense it consciously. But I think this is really a core element to impact. When you make a commitment to do good for yourself and to do good for the world and to be supportive of life, when you do things, possibly even think things, and take in emotions that are against life, against wisdom. These are clues to you that you're doing the wrong thing. It's a rule you can't cheat, you can't fake it. It's just this kind of all-observing force that within yourself, even if nobody else as another person knows it. Yourself you've done that, and you've gone against your conscience. So I think we'll come to conscious, capitalism, conscious investing later, but the idea of our conscience is in fact the first starting point of our connection to consciousness. So consciousness has many different fields, from the worst to the best. But how intact our own conscience is really related to how well we've done in this game of being true to wisdom against lying and creating crimes against wisdom. So when we lie, even to ourselves, with our ideas, with our thoughts, with our internal worlds, if it's based on a lie, we don't develop our conscience. And therefore, we don't have the full access to the range of consciousness. So it's quite a deep issue, but a really powerful one.
Very powerful.
I think prajna parada is more actually, once you are acting against wisdom, that's where sickness happens in the body. That's where we lose touch with our physical existence or our emotions or our spirituality even. And we break down and we die afterwards. So it's more essential than making an impact in the world is how you survive and you live in this planet. Do you want to live in a higher frequency feelings or lower frequency feelings? Just like David Hawkins' map of consciousness, if you act from fear and anger or, the lower frequencies, then you cannot create an impact that would make the world. You will create an impact for sure. Impact doesn't have to be good. It can be bad. but it can be from the fear-based system that we are already all living in somehow, or from a higher consciousness, like Markus has mentioned, where we can create impact, create, hopefully, chase utopia altogether and create something more beautiful than what it is right now we have created as humanity. What I find very peculiar is that we say, okay, this is what life is, so we have to make do with it. It doesn't have to be. These are the rules that humans have written and done. These are the borders that some humans have said, this is my country, this is your country, and this is the line in between. So nothing is set in stone, nothing is God created. It's just human-made system that we need to be courageous enough and be courageous enough not to make crimes against wisdom. Ask ourselves again and again, what would God do in this situation? And even look into our work and everything that we do from that wisdom. Am I creating value or am I destroying with what I'm doing right now in the world? I think that's what Prajnaparada stands for.
I love how you resonated with the frequencies of feelings. And I think, impact is so much about abundance. And when you have that, frequency of abundance, I think you can approach impact investing from a different angle as well. Because we're all raised up with the feeling that, abundance is not there. And resources are scarce. So that's where, we actually approach things in a very, skeptical way when it comes to impact investing as well. I want to really talk about the misconception about impact investing, because mostly people conflate that with either activism or philanthropy. Which is not the right way of approaching impact investing. So understanding how to unlock value in impact and regenerative investments is very crucial. And that's why I want to understand, how do we differentiate between activism and conscious impact?
I was in Eckhart Tolle's workshop a couple of years ago, which I'm sure many of the people who are listening to the podcast either knows or should know. He's a wonderful human being that is still alive in this planet where you can be in presence of. So anyway, in his workshop, there was this one person who was an activist, and that person stand up and said, I'm so mad that people are doing this, doing that. How can I tackle this situation and stuff? And with Eckhart's very calm, very yin attitude, he's like, as long as you vibrate in that vibration, you cannot create impact. You have to let go of that fear-based or, that scarcity mindset. Let that go, and then you can create impact and beauty in the world. So once you're in this activist against something mood, which Markus will dive into more beautifully, I think. But with this example, that's what I felt like, I always thought that you have to be passionate against something. And I had this activist blood inside of me as well to be, against something, to change something. But that day, there was a click that happened in me through Eckhart's wisdom.
Yeah, I think that's a really powerful example. And like you're saying, I've discovered this also in my own life, many times. This idea of being a rebel and, a rebel with a cause and all these different kind of archetypes that, might resonate with us when we're younger. I don't know. But when you are motivated by acting against something, you're actually in this kind of flight or fight mode. And when you're in that kind of mode, you're feeling stressful, you're feeling anxiety, you're feeling lower levels of emotion and feeling and consciousness. And at the end of the day, in this world, we're always chasing our feelings. We're chasing something to feel good about. So when we can be in an environment where we're 100% behind something, we're not out against something. And I think that this is really the interesting separation between activism or philanthropy. And I'm not even going to put charity into that conversation because that's completely passive in many ways. But when we're looking at impact, you have to put all of your time and energy and resources into actually creating something new that is not existing within the old system. So it's not so much an issue of saying, well, I'm going to fight the old system and bring it down to its knees. In fact, I'm going to create something so amazing that it's going to make the old system obsolete, which is one of these, going back to Socrates' time. I think that that's really the kind of essence of it is, we're more creative when we're stress-free, when we feel a sense of playfulness, when we feel this kind of, we're in an ambiguous space, and rather than being scared of it, we're going to kind of feel our way through it rather than think our way through it. And when we do that, we realize that, like you were talking about abundance, abundance is limitless. It also comes into our imagination. It comes into the way that we perceive the world. It's not just an issue of the material world and the scarce resources around us and all the limitations that we've been taught to believe we have to fight for, we have to be competitive for. So this idea of competition is really at the core of this too. So in a world that we're living in now where competition is so intense, winner takes all, we become afraid of competition and we think that competition is bad. But at the core of it, competition doesn't have to be bad. There's this kind of amazing place, and I think this is where the impact sector still lives because it's still a marginal sector. It's 1% of all investments in the world or less. So we're still talking about a very, very small portion. So the key to this space to unlock it really is how do you move into a competition that is playful, a little bit more ambiguous. We did another podcast last week with Peter Senge, who's a founder of systems thinking. And he brought up this amazing concept of pre-competitive collaboration. I love that word a lot. And what that means is, when we're developing new ideas and concepts before you move them into the marketplace, there's this amazing kind of flow of free ideas, of abundance, that nothing is fixed, nothing is limited. It's just a kind of open-ended freestyling space to explore. And what you end up discovering there is not just new business models or new investment opportunities, but the togetherness of working collaboratively with other people, unleashing your creativity, feeling good about the things that you're doing, learning about the problems that you can be solving. So in that kind of competition, everybody benefits. You're competitive against each other for the best ideas, for the best outcomes, not necessarily for market share and things like this. So I think that in the world of impact, which is still, a marginal story in the overall kind of assets of the world, if you want to look at it that way, the beautiful thing is that it's playful. You can do more than make money. The whole market is already making money, but you can do more than make money. And it's a creative exercise to figure out how to do that.
Amazing. I'm super inspired with how you put this together, really. Thank you for the insights. Now that we've unpacked some of the concepts about impact, let's get more practical. How do we align, our investment decisions? Any morning we wake up, how do we align our investment decisions with our values, higher values, and really be more impactful?
Well, number one, you have to know what your values are. So without knowing that, I don't think that you can start on that path. I mean, just as a preface to that whole answer, I don't think that this is something that starts overnight. It's not you wake up one day from living a very standard, extractive life built on scarcity, and then all of a sudden the next day you look at the world as abundance. This doesn't happen this way. I believe demands a conscious decision to change your life. And most people come to this stage either through disease, sickness, some breakdown. Their life has exploded in front of them because they were chasing the wrong dream or acting from prajna paradha, crimes against wisdom. And everybody eventually comes to a stage in their life where you can no longer go on the way that you were going on before. And you make a conscious decision to change. And then you figure out how hard that is to change, because we have all these built-in patterns that we've developed our whole life. And for most people, that personality that we develop, our ego, our masks that we wear, are the things that we get rewarded for. So you think that you're chasing the right thing up until a moment that you realize, maybe that wasn't the right thing. And there's this idea of essence within myself that I need to start tapping into. And I think that that's the road to impact as well. Once you start saying that I can't go on the way that I used to be and I need to make some radical changes, we can talk about those separately. But that first decision, I think, is what needs to happen. And without that, it never happens. It doesn't have to come by accident. It doesn't have to come from some horrible trauma or drama. Mm-hmm. The hardest way is to kind of say, well, I can learn from others. I've seen that happen to them, somebody I loved, somebody I cared about. So how do I, from secondhand information, from my intuition, make a conscious decision to change before my house burns down, my inner house or whatever the case may be for the person. So this is an important first step.
Once you know that you are just passing through this planet, and hopefully you will pass through with leaving a good handprint, a better handprint, leave it better than you have left, just like the indigenous people say, thinking about the next generations. Or you can just wake up and say, how do I save my day and make my day so that what is it? It's for me. That's all the thing that I ask about a day. So there's two other perspectives. I think once we realize that we are going to die and we're going to leave this planet and this is not forever, so that you can choose the other path, the less traveled path where you can intend to make impact. And just like Markus said, differentiate your values from your prejudices, because sometimes we mix them to each other. We think there are values, but there are actually build up prejudices that comes from, older generations that doesn't even serve us or the planet anymore or the next generation anymore. So to be awake and wise enough to know the difference, and to also remember that you're just passing by and you're just paying it forward to the planet.
Exactly. I mean, as you mentioned, there are different levels of consciousness, of course. Some come with knowing their values. Some find it throughout the way, either through, difficult experiences or some wisdom coming with, experiences and observations. And some, actually die without even connecting with them. So for the ones who are actually wiser enough or open enough to connect with their values, and who want to really align that with their financial investment decisions, how they can interlink both values and their investment decisions. There are so many different opportunities, technological developments, many aspects in impact investment. What excites you most, and how can actually people find, an area that excites them and make their investments align with that values?
I think this comes down to a variation of what I was just describing. But, for us to really be committed to something, whether we, that's our own personal life or our families or, the relationship with your money and whatnot, this comes, I think, down to having a clear answer on what do you serve. As an individual human being, it's possibly quite a bit different for everybody, but being very beyond values. We have one value that we all share in common as human beings, and that is that we want life to continue on this earth. This is the one value that we all share. So beyond that, everybody's values are different. And for your own, I think, it's a part of your soul searching work that you need to do to understand what it is that you're truly willing to selflessly serve, and never give up on that. And every decision you're making every day, whether it's related, again, just to your money or to your conversations or how you spend your 24 hours, really, to bear that in mind and self-remember why it is that you're here. We're all here to serve something, whether we understand that or not. And it can never be ourselves. We can serve ourselves in the short term, to survive, to get through the day. But if that becomes your lifestyle and that's all you're doing, you're going to quite quickly realize that you've run out of meaningful living, even when you're alive. Being clear on what it is that you're ready to serve and willing to serve selflessly, honestly. This is a daily meditation and a daily practice, and it's possibly something that never becomes a habit. You have to force this on yourself. This is the work.
It is a work. It's a commitment, and a long-term commitment. And every morning, it's a conscious choice of really making this decision. I totally agree with you. Eda, would you like to comment?
That starts with that for sure, the purpose part of it, or what am I serving? And also, while you're serving, you need a community that resonates with you, and a knowledge that you accumulate through the subject that you want to serve into. So for that, surround yourself with wonderful places like Dotshub, the events that are happening here. The other day when we were together physically, I think that was the answer to your question that I felt. In that room, we had such wonderful organizations and foundations and companies together that we could have started an impact immediately with those people. So that kind of right crowd, right people that we can collaborate with will accelerate the process of what do I want to serve and how do I make that happen. So the how part, I think life reveals it to you when you are in the right place with the right people at the right time.
Yes, I totally agree. When it comes to impact investing, conscious capitalism, responsible investments, it's more than important to have an ecosystem of like-minded people. As Markus mentioned, at the end of the day, we're talking about 1 to 2% of the whole asset under management in the financial investment industry. So how are we going to shift, more capital towards this area is really an ecosystem building up exercise, building together, people, like-minded people, collaborating, thinking together, dreaming together, and creating a vision together. So it's very important what we are doing here, sharing our, personal stories as well, because we haven't really come to this state that quickly as well. We all had our personal paths where we have gone through things, discovered things, and we actually wanted to grow in a different direction, which is more impactful for us and for the ecosystem, for the world, for other people as well. So I'm truly, appreciating your contribution to the series, to the event. I know you're two people really living the world, like you say. Your words are in the same actions. So it's very inspirational for us to see, how you actually live your lives and speak about it. Thank you for joining us in our first episode. Well, as we wrap up let's remember, impactful living is not just a aspiration, but it's a daily practice. So thank you for our guests for joining us and for their insights today. Until next time, let's strive to unlock our impact in our communities and beyond. Thank you all for watching. We hope to see you in our live events at Dotshub. Take care.